Hello, students. I usually start each class talking about my version of career advice. So the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of every class that I teach and lecture in, I just offer up my general random career advice. And then after that, I go into the course content and material. The reason I do that is because I think it's important to our students that they hear my thoughts based on things that I've seen over the last 20 to 30 years. And I had a student come up to me and say, this career advice is very, very helpful. Could you put together a video that captures all of the advice that you've been giving us during the semester? My first thought was, well, you could have just taken notes, but I didn't go there. So I just agreed, yeah, I'll put something together for you. And I thought I'd just extend this out there to the general public for all students to see. And I think this applies not only to students majoring in supply chain management, but students in general, in particular students majoring in business, where the intention is that they're going to graduate and go off into industry. Okay, I will start rattling off, hopefully very quickly, some thoughts I have. One is I have a lot of students that interview, and when they get a job offer, they look at a bunch of factors like the benefits package. Does it include a job rotation? Where will I start? What's the 401k contribution? What's the starting salary? Am I immediately bonus eligible? And all of those things are very important. And they look at things like fit and culture. All of those things are important, but let me say this. The number one reason that you will leave your employer isn't for money. The data clearly shows, and everything else is a distant second and third. The number one reason that people leave their employers is because they didn't enjoy being around their boss, their direct report. So one piece of advice I have is during the interviewing process, spend as much time as you possibly can with the person that you're going to report to directly. You have to ask yourself questions like, do you like their leadership style? Is this a person that I will gravitate towards? Is this a person that's kind of selfless and will put me ahead of themselves? If you're interviewing someone and you're picking up on, well, they're arrogant, they're selfish, they put themselves first, they walk all over people. It's an individual that doesn't say thank you, doesn't say good job, doesn't say I'm sorry. If you have to go in every day and experience that, I'm pretty sure at some point you're going to be so miserable that you'll want to walk away from that job. And it won't be for any other reason than you don't like the person that you report directly to. So you have to pick up on the leadership style of the person that you're interviewing with. And I think a reasonable question to ask during the interviewing process is, could you please tell me what you think your leadership style is like? And I've had managers tell me that they like that question. It's slightly aggressive, but they like talking about how they manage their people. And from that, you can maybe gather a little bit on if it's a good match for you or not. So that's advice number one from me. Along the same lines, when it comes to interviewing, I think it's very important that not only do you answer their questions very well, but that you also ask very good questions of the person or people that are interviewing you. So obviously all the rage right now is STAR interview techniques and questions. They're basically going to ask you behavioral questions, and they want you to put yourself in a situation that you've been in the context of the question that they're asking. And the end result is they want you to answer the question in terms of what were the deliverables and results associated with whatever they're asking you about. So I think it's very important on your resume that by the time you graduate, you have professional work experiences that translate into not only being an observer of supply chain management situations and learning about supply chain management, but also being able to make decisions and do things that translate into actions, deliverables, and results. So a lot of the questions that you actually get from managers will use the STAR technique. So you almost have to practice that a little bit and understand it and do your research in terms of what actually are STAR questions, and then how do I apply my life situations and professional experiences to that technique. Okay, you will have opportunities to ask questions yourself, and I feel like human psychology says that if you ask questions about other people and you get them to talk about themselves a little bit, like where did you go to school? What did you major in? How long have you worked here? Where have you worked at in this company? What are some of your longer term plans? I think when you get other people talking about themselves a little bit, they enjoy it, but then they also see a person that they might enjoy interacting with at work because it demonstrates that you actually care about them as well. So I think anytime you can ask questions that get them to talk about themselves a little bit, I think that serves you very well during the interviewing process. I also think you need to show them that you're somewhat of a visionary in your field and moving forward. So some questions you could ask, for example, are Mr. Smith or Ms. Smith, what would you say is this company's core competency? What is this organization's core competency? Now, be careful when you ask an intelligent, visionary type of question. They might flip it back to you right away and say, well, what do you mean by a core competency? So in that situation, you could say, well, by core competency, what do you think you're really, really good at where everyone comes to you for it? Or what do you think you're really, really good at where it gives you a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Now, if you're a supply chain management major interviewing for a supply chain management job in their supply chain management organization, I would hope that if you ask them, what do you think is your core competency, that the term supply chain management would come up. So the manager might say, well, our core competency is supply chain management. We work in an industry where everyone outsources everything to all of the same suppliers. So literally all of the competitors in our industry are outsourcing everything to all of the same suppliers. So whoever manages their suppliers the best will get the competitive advantage moving forward. So I think asking questions and be able to respond to them if they flip it back to you is very, very important during the interviewing process. Also, the other thing I would ask is, if I get this job, could you show me where in the org chart I would actually be? I think that would be an interesting question, because what you have to figure out is if you interview for a job within a functional area and you figure out where you're going to be at in the organizational chart, if the most important person within that functional area isn't an executive in the C-suites or isn't someone that reports to the CEO directly, you have to ask yourself, am I interviewing with and potentially taking a job within a functional area of the organization that they don't take super, super seriously? In other words, they don't manage it strategically. Because if they managed it strategically, the most important person in this functional area would be in the C-suites with the title of like Vice President of Supply Chain Management that talks to the CEO multiple times on a daily basis. The good news is the vast majorities of the companies out there that recruit and hire our students, if you look at their org chart and you look at the most important person within the functional area of the area that you're going to be working within, like supply chain management, there usually is executive level C-suite representation, like a vice president of supply chain management, especially for companies that design and build things, because for every $1 worth of sales revenue, 50, 60, 70, 80 cents of that is in direct material purchases. In other words, stuff they're buying from their supply chain. So any questions that you can ask that would send a message to them that this person really gets it and has a vision of industry, I think serves you very well as also. Okay, another thought I have is I have students interview with companies. I just want to throw this out there. If you want to work with a company long term and climb up the corporate ladder and have job security and get promoted, you think the company is a great fit for you 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that's fantastic. Just remember, I firmly believe this, all roads lead back to corporate headquarters. So I know it's COVID, it's remote and virtual work experiences. If there's ever been a time when you can not have to be in the office and still be professionally successful, now's that time. Moving forward, we're going to have to go back to the office, but yes, work experiences will be hybrid. But the point I'm trying to make is long term, if you want to climb up the corporate ladder and advance and get promoted, you need lots of exposure to the decision makers. And the important decision makers often tend to be at corporate headquarters. Big surprise. So the point I'm trying to make is, let's say you interview with a company like Kellogg's that makes breakfast food. They're headquartered in Battle Creek. They're a global company. They have facilities all over the world. They have hybrid work experiences. They have some jobs that require mostly remote. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that's a company that's headquartered in Battle Creek, Michigan. So if you want to climb, advance, and get promoted, and you want to stay with that company long term, you have to be somewhat okay with working in Michigan, Southwest Michigan, and specifically Battle Creek, even though now they have some operations in Grand Rapids. But at the end of the day, geographically, you have to be okay with this part of the country. And I think, again, my advice is long term, if you want to be with the company, I think all roads lead back to corporate headquarters, wherever that might be geographically. And you have to ask yourself, are you okay with that? Because I'm hearing that geographic location and locale is very important to students, both short-term and long-term. So just keep in mind that if you take a job with a company that's not at corporate headquarters, there's nothing wrong with that. But ask yourself, longer term, would I be okay with being where they're at with corporate headquarters? Okay, also, when you get a job offer and you look at the base pay, remember you're majoring in supply chain management. Most companies regard that as a core competency. Most regard that as something they have to be very, very good at. A lot of companies and a lot of industries where the only way they make more money is to cut costs, where most of their costs in their supply chain. Likewise, a lot of companies are in growth industries and they're leaning on their supply chain management organization to help them grow their business. For example, hey, supply chain, can you go to our suppliers and figure out how to get this product to market faster at this price and cost so we can sell it at this price and get these margins on the product? So at the end of the day, companies are leaning on supply chain management to not only help them save money and cut costs, because if you cut costs by, say, $1 billion, that's the same thing as giving your company $1 worth of pre-tax profit. So again, that's why supply chain management tends to have executive level representation in the C-suites, and why future CEOs of companies that in particular design and build things will have supply chain management backgrounds. So when you graduate from school, in the past, entry-level managerial positions, the job offers didn't say that you were immediately bonus eligible. As you get promoted and you climb up the corporate ladder, you start to achieve what we call bonus eligibility. So what they do is if you meet your goals and the company meets its goals, you get a bonus, and it's usually based on a percentage of your base. As you climb up the corporate ladder, your bonus eligibility might be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of your base pay. And sometimes you climb up the corporate ladder so much that your bonus sometimes can be more than your base pay, right? The cool thing is most of our students that now graduate are majoring in something that's so important to so many companies out there. In the job offer for an entry-level managerial position straight out of school for a college grad, you're immediately bonus eligible. So look at, hey, am I immediately bonus eligible? If I am, what's the bonus eligibility as a percentage of my base pay? The going rate for our students is 5, 10, 15, 20%. We have one company that says when we hire you at $60K a year, you're immediately bonus eligible, and your bonus eligibility is 20%. In other words, if you meet your goals and the company meets its goals, you're going to get an extra $12K, 20% of $60,000 every year moving forward. This company in particular says that as you climb up the corporate ladder, the bonus eligibility as a percentage of your base pay tends to stay around the same at 20%, but 20% bonus eligibility as a percentage of your base pay straight out of school, that's off the charts. Most of my students are getting 5, 10%. So you get a job offer for $70K, 10% bonus eligibility, you might get an extra $7K if you meet your goals and the company meets its goals. And those companies where you start off at 5 or 10% of your base, as you climb up the corporate ladder, those numbers go from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. And one day, maybe you're making more in bonuses than you are in base pay. Again, all of those things are rewards and motivational tools, but it's a part of your job offer that you should indeed look at. Okay, many of my students have heard me talk about this over and over again. We are now embarking on Industry 4.0 and Supply Chain Management 4.0. And basically what that means is the amount of data that companies are looking at is at an all-time high. And over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, the amount of data that's going to be at a company's disposal to look at is going to increase exponentially. The part of the organization that's probably going to see the largest amount of data at its disposal to look at and make decisions with is supply chain management. So moving forward, especially early on in your careers, in order to make a great impression, companies are going to dump you with huge amounts of data. So you're going to have these managers in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s dumping you with gigantic amounts of data and saying, make sense out of this for us, help us make better decisions. And the reason they're going to dump you with that is they're going to expect you to have these technology skills. And also, they don't know how, because they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and over a period of time, they didn't learn these skill sets, and these skill sets weren't taught in schools because the technology wasn't there yet. So I really push for a lot of people out there to get a minor informal training in business data analytics. And that's a fancy way of saying I know how to look at and make sense out of large amounts of data. For example, I have advanced Excel spreadsheet skills. And not only can I make sense out of large amounts of data, I can turn it into visual tools that help managers better understand the situation so they can make better decisions. So they start to use things like Tableau and Power BI. So the point I'm trying to make is I have a lot of students that are afraid of the technology. They say, I'm not good with Excel. I'm not good with spreadsheets. I don't know how to use this stuff. Here's my point. The business data analytics stuff is like riding a bicycle. You're not going to learn how to ride a bicycle watching a YouTube video. You need someone holding your hand right there with you. So what I've noticed is students that don't pursue the minor say, I'll learn it later on. Harvard, MIT, they have these online programs where you can get certificates in business data analytics for free. They provided it to the world and said, look, this is what we teach on site, on campus to our students that are paying top dollar for this education to learn these skill sets. So if you look at these massive open online courses that are for free, and they really are, and they're exceptionally well taught and the quality is fantastic. Here's the data. Very few people actually go online to learn skill sets that take weeks and months to learn. Of the people that start, less than 3% in the United States actually finish. Why? Because it takes weeks and months to learn, but most importantly, it requires a lot of hand holding. So what I tell people out there is if you're afraid of the technology, trust me when I say, if you learned how to ride a bicycle, you can learn business data analytics. It's just like riding a bicycle where it takes practice and someone literally has to hold your hand. That means a professor in the classroom that says step 1, step 2, step 3, oh, go back to step 3 because you didn't do it right. And then it starts to register and click, and then they let go and you're running with it. During COVID, when our students took these CIS, business data analytics classes online, it was brutal, it was tough. The professors knew it. They wanted to get back into the classroom and teach face-to-face as quickly as possible because they knew this was a skill set that everyone was capable of learning, everyone, and I mean that, but it requires tons of hand holding. So that's why I encourage everyone to get good at the stuff that you're afraid of, that you know is important. And typically with those types of skill sets, you just need someone saying, be here on these dates, at these times, I will hold your hand, I will walk you through this. And then at the end of that process, it'll click and register and resonate with you, then you're off and running. Technology is exactly that. So don't be too afraid. Typically, the things that we're afraid of the most are the things that we should actually be gravitating towards. And what I've noticed with my former students is the ones that were most fearful of the technology, like business data analytics, are the ones that are prospering and flourishing because they've gotten so good at that technology. There's something about human psychology that says if we're really afraid of something, that's something that maybe we should be gravitating towards and something that we could actually excel at, where we take that fear and turn it into nervous energy, and then all of a sudden it's actually excitement. So don't be afraid of the technology. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap up part 1 of my series of career advice. So there might be 2 or 3 parts. This is part 1. My other piece of advice is when you start working with a company, a lot of my students will actually work for companies that design and build stuff. So my recommendation is very early on in your career, take their product and tear it down. Put the pieces back together. Learn how those parts are bought, how they come in, how they come together, and how they leave the factory door. My first job was for a company that designed and built radios that go in cars and trucks. And during my first week on the job, the people I worked with took a car radio, they disassembled it because they had a bunch of them lying around, and they told me to put it back together. And over a period of a few weeks, I learned how all of those parts came together in general. And then my boss said, okay, the factory is right next door because you're working at corporate headquarters in Kokomo, Indiana. Go out there and watch how the parts come in, how the parts are put together, and how it leaves the factory door when we send it to the car and truck plants up in Michigan when they put them in the GM cars and trucks. Manufacturing is the part of the company that consumes most of the company's resources if it's a company that designs and builds things. It's really hard to climb up the corporate ladder at a company that builds things if you have no idea how their products are actually built. So there are a number of reasons, and good ones, for understanding, okay, what is the product or even the service that my company provides, and how does it all come together and eventually end up in the customer's hands. So along the same lines, another valuable thing that you could do early on in your career is go to someone in your company and say, when a customer places an order, okay, when a customer places an order, what's that process? Chances are, if it's a large company that's well managed, they'll actually have the process laid out where they'll say step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Go through the process of when a customer places an order and follow that entire process. Maybe actually go to each step in the company. Talk to the people that perform that step and watch it until the customer actually gets the service or product in their hands, or it leaves the factory door, or it's sent out. By understanding how a customer order is processed, an incredibly complicated process, you start to figure out what makes the organization tick, but also what the company is really, really good at. Someone asked me, what defines an entrepreneur? What will the future entrepreneurs look like? Will they look like Bill Gates and Bezos and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs? You graduate from high school, you go to Harvard, you flunk out, you quit, you have an idea in your garage, and then you scale it, and all of a sudden you're Apple, for example. The data shows that entrepreneurs and startups that are successful, there's a common thread, and it's growing. People that are good at identifying problems, in other words, they go out there and they just say, wait, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem. They go into the workplace and see everything as a problem to be solved. For example, everything has a process. Every process has a process. Every process is a problem. What's the problem? How do I do it better, faster, and cheaper? So moving forward, whether you become an entrepreneur, whether you are part of a startup, or whether you work for someone else and just climb up the corporate ladder, the most valuable skill set that you can develop is the ability to look at everything as a problem that can be solved. So once you get good at identifying potential problems and issues and things that really could be done better, faster, and cheaper, then you learn the next skill set, and that's how to actually solve the problem. How do I tackle that and figure out how to do it better, faster, and cheaper? So what a lot of entrepreneurs are saying is, I got really good at identifying problems, and then I learned how to solve problems. And eventually, they stumbled across a problem where they said, you know what? There are a lot of people out there with this problem, and I feel like I could scale this and build this up where a lot of people would come to me to help them with this problem. An example would be the technology company called Flexport. If you look at their CEO and founder and inventor, he basically determined that if you look at global trade from the time something is built in China to the time it gets to a grocery store, for example, or a toy store, that entire process is manually driven. It's not automated. It's done on paper, and goods and services exchange hands multiple times, and the paper trail is gigantic. And if you actually look at the paper associated with that trail, it's like that high. Okay, so he came along and said, why can't we do that online and get rid of the paper? And big surprise, that was a problem that a lot of companies were dealing with, and he figured out a way to do that better, faster, and cheaper. And now Flexport is prospering and flourishing in the supply chain management technology space. So back to my point, if you go work with a company and you take their product and figure out how the parts come together, if you go work for a company and you look at their paper trail for how a customer order is processed, just by being a college grad and not having the blinders on and being creative in general and seeing this stuff for the very first time, you could potentially say, hey, wait, why is that taking 2 weeks between step 3 and step 4? That doesn't make any sense to me. You go there and you watch the process between step 3 and step 4, and you figure out a way, wait, if we did it this way, it would cut the time in half. Customers would get their orders faster, and it would save us this much money. We'd actually be able to sell more stuff because we can't keep up with the business as it is. So again, being someone that can identify problems and then being someone that can solve problems, you develop those skill sets and you're off and running professionally, whether you work for someone, come up with your own company. Okay, last one before I end part one of my career advice series. When you go work for a company, really understand what makes them tick. In other words, what's their business model? And for now, being a 20-year-old, keep it really simple. For example, in the insurance industry, we buy insurance, we give insurance companies money. Then stuff happens to us and they give us money back, right? If I asked you which one was bigger, okay, when we give them money and they give us money back, most people think, well, the money that they give back is way less than the money we give them. In reality, if you look at the insurance industry in general, when we give them $1, they tend to give $1 back. In other words, the money that they take in when we pay for insurance premiums, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio with what we pay in to what they dish back out to us. So then you're thinking, how could they possibly make money with that business model? And that's the point I'm trying to make, is you have to understand what makes them tick. The cool thing about the insurance industry is we give them our money before anything bad happens to us. Okay, so if we give them our money and they have it first, they sit on that money and they invest it. They are so good in investing that stockpile of money that when they pay us back, when stuff happens to us, they have way more money left over than we paid into them. So the actual amount that we pay in to what they pay out is actually 1-to-1. But because they get the money ahead of time and they invest it so well, apparently because they do make a lot of money, they come out ahead. And that's where they get their profits from. Most of the students that graduate with a business major, companies want to make more money. The way they make more money is they cut costs, and that's great if you're majoring in supply chain management because you're majoring in how to do things better, faster, and cheaper. If you help your company cut costs by $1, that's the same thing as giving them $1 worth of pre-tax profit. The other way companies make more money is they sell more stuff. In particular, they sell more stuff that is very profitable, that has good wide margins. And that's the other part of supply chain management, is that's now helping companies as well, helping them grow their business on the stuff that makes them a lot of money. It's called reverse supply chain management, or reverse marketing, where you go back to your suppliers and say, look, we got someone out there that's willing to pay $2 for this. Help us get this to market really, really fast so that we can do it at this cost and sell it for $2 and make this much money on it. Reverse supply chain management, reverse marketing helps them make more money and grow their business. So I think you just need to understand, when I go work for a company, what makes them tick? What does their business model look like? Is it about driving down costs? Is it about growing their business? Is it about widening margins, increasing their asset turnover rate? The cool thing is, whatever their business model is, whatever it is that makes them tick, those leading bottom line financial indicators, whatever those are, chances are if you're majoring in supply chain management, you can have a direct, huge impact on that. Just to understand what part of that formula for that financial indicator do you need to address. Is it cutting costs so you can widen margins? Is it reducing inventory so you can increase their asset turnover rate? Is it outsourcing to someone that can do it better, faster, and cheaper, so that you allow your company to do more with less? In other words, increase their asset turnover rate. So chances are you're going to be in a job that's going to have a direct impact on a part of the financial calculation that the company is obsessed with. Make sure you understand which part of that calculation you can have an impact on that they're obsessed with, and I think that will help you prosper and flourish. Okay, that's the end of part one. Stay tuned for part two at some point. Thank you.